It's Tuesday, March 28. In the headlines, government working on health tourism policy. Education Ministry working to increase interest in mathematics. In business news, link expands to remittance collection. Regionally, Cubans go to the polls. Internationally, British Airways to cancel some flights during Easter. And in sports, Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Champs starts today. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Plans are afoot to develop a health tourism policy for Jamaica. The Tourism Ministry is working with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, to develop a policy. Portfolio Minister Edmund Bartlett says the policy will be an essential framework that outlines the regulations, guidelines, and procedures for promoting and regulating medical tourism in the country. He's quoted saying, "We're going to move post-haste to get that policy so as to define the broad parameters within which areas of health experiences can be augmented in Jamaica's tourism product." End quote. The minister was addressing journalists at the end of a two-day tour across the parishes of Hanover and Westmoreland recently. National Mathematics Coordinator Dr. Tamika Benjamin wants Jamaicans to change their mindset about mathematics. Speaking at a recent JIS think tank, she shared how her team, and by extension, members of the teaching fraternity, have been working to bring about this change. Carla Thomas Hewitt tells us more about this calculative conversation.
National Mathematics Coordinator Dr. Tamika Benjamin says the team has been working through the ministry's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics STEM program with the aim of making math more relatable.
So we recognize part of that is changing how people see the subject, how students come to the classroom with the subject, viewing the subject, and how they experience it, and their ability to see the relationship between what they are learning in the classroom and their everyday life experiences.
Regional Mathematics Coordinator for Region 6, Kamade Thompson-Burrell, joined the conversation, explaining that they have used robotics, coding, and artificial intelligence to enhance the learning experience for students.
We're trying to have our students really seeing all these things that, hey, this is really still math, even though it's STEM-related activities. So we're doing the link between both math and STEM. Within a part of this day's activity too, we're looking at panel discussions where we're having persons, these are expertise within these STEM-related fields, having discussions with our students, and we will have question and answer, so the students will have the opportunity to ask our panelists things that they really need answers for, that they're not too clear and they may want to go in that field but not sure.
Dr. Benjamin says schools have started to invest in more resources for their math programs.
We see our principals being more assertive in sourcing resources, whether human or otherwise, to support the math programs in their schools. We see parent teachers associations stepping up to support schools in acquiring resources. So I think on so many levels, we are seeing that shift.
She says the results of the push for increased interest in math has already begun to bear fruit.
Certainly the data at the primary level in particular is showing that we have seen consistent growth in student performance rates. When we would have started in 2012, we were just about 40% of our grade 4 students attaining mastery. And I think for 2022, we were about 75% of our students attaining mastery at grade 4. So we believe this is part of the fruit of this work.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Carla Thomas Hewitt.
Tanya Dawkins, a teacher at Port Antonio High School in Portland, is the Ministry of Education and Youth 2023 Mathematics Teacher of the Year. The announcement was made on Monday during a ceremony at the University of the West Indies, Mona. A mathematics teacher for 21 years, she said that her strategy of ensuring her classes are fun has aided greatly in her students' success in the often dreaded subject area. Ms. Dawkins allows her students to explore the concepts being taught by incorporating different games and activities while making sure to cater to the different learning styles. Regional Mathematics Coordinator for Region 2, Shawnagay Young Henry, explained the process of awarding the Mathematics Teacher of the Year while sharing information on Mathematics Week 2023 at a JIS think tank.
Those who would have scored 75% and over would be shortlisted to be observed for that phase. Then we move to the second phase, where we would have these persons who would have been shortlisted from the first, which are the regional finalists. We would now do another observation with these persons, regions. After we would have done the observation, then we would have an interview. And now this interview would be done by another panel. And then the second phase, where the finalists are asked to do a presentation on topical issues within the ministry, and they have 15 minutes to do that. And then from that, we would have our national winner.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness says Jamaica has confirmed 2 more cases of monkeypox, also known as Mpox. The ministry says the latest cases are from Kingston and St. Andrew and are recorded as being locally transmitted. This brings the island's total confirmed cases to 21. 18 males and 3 females. Mpox is a rare disease that is similar to smallpox and can be transmitted by contact and droplet exposure. Persons who contract the virus may experience rashes and flu-like symptoms. The World Health Organization, WHO, has declared the public emergency of international concern for monkeypox, and it remains in effect. Dr. Rosamond Lewis provides a status update, lessons learned from the response so far, and elaborates on who is at risk in this week's Living Healthy report.
Rosamond, let's start with a status update on Mpox, please.
Indeed, in this outbreak, we've seen now almost 90,000 cases of Mpox occurring in 110 countries around the world, with 97 deaths. This is an unprecedented outbreak, as we know. Countries around the world that are reporting Mpox had not previously experienced this at all. Now at this time, where many countries have effectively curbed their outbreak and cases have really come down, there are still some parts of the world where there is continuing risk. This includes the Americas, particularly Central America. It includes countries that are still reporting. We still have over 30 countries that have reported in the last month. So, for example, Spain, a few other countries in Europe, mostly Latin America, Central America, and of course, Africa. In this outbreak, we are still seeing cases linked to travel, but travel from different parts of the world. And so that means that an outbreak can occur anytime through link to travel.
Rosamond, who is at risk of Mpox?
In this global outbreak of Mpox, the group primarily affected have been men who have sex with men. This remains the group that is most at risk for new cases of Mpox. There have been some women and children affected, but they have been relatively few. So it is very important for people who may be at risk, particularly men who have sex with men, to continue to be mindful of how to reduce their risk by reducing the number of sexual partners, for example, and being aware when they are attending events where sexual activity may occur. The other group that continue to be at risk, of course, are people who are affected in the African setting. In West Africa, there is a mix. There is sexual transmission between men and women. And in Central Africa, there continue to be outbreaks where people may be affected through contact with the forest and animal-to-human transmission of the monkeypox virus. We all need to be aware that in the coming spring and summer season in the Northern Hemisphere, of course this is true around the world, there may be activities linked to gatherings and events where risk may be higher, where there may be sex on premises, where there may be sexual contact with multiple partners. These are the situations where there may be greater risk of Mpox, even as the outbreak is slowing down worldwide.
Rosamond, what is new and what have we learned so far from the response?
In this outbreak, we've learned a lot about Mpox, the disease, and monkeypox virus as well. We've learned that the strain of virus that is driving the outbreak is not new, but it has adapted to person-to-person transmission. This particular strain of the virus has not been found in animals. And so it's really critically important that we continue public health measures to protect people and prevent further transmission of this disease. We have learned, for example, that people who have advanced or untreated HIV infection are at much higher risk for severe illness or death. It is important for you to know your HIV status in order to be able to get appropriate treatment, testing, and care. While the outbreak appeared to begin primarily in Caucasian men in Europe and North America and has spread around the world, we are now also learning that it is reaching more marginalized and ethnic and racial groups, such as Black and Latino men, who have a much higher rate of acquiring Mpox in their communities and a much lower access to prevention measures and face greater stigma and discrimination. So now public health efforts are also going to continue engagement with communities most affected and to reach those who are harder to reach in order to protect them and prevent stigma so that they may also have access to the services that are necessary. As the outbreak is coming under control globally, we can now turn our efforts towards eliminating Mpox in countries where that is feasible and supporting countries where Mpox control and prevention are essential to prevent such further outbreaks in the future. One of the things that we have seen in this outbreak response that has been most successful has been the engagement with and by the most affected communities themselves. Men who have sex with men have taken charge of their own health in order to seek access to services and reduce their own risk. In this outbreak response, we will continue to work with the most affected and marginalized communities to stop this outbreak.
Thank you, Rosamond. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
And it's now time for the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
Mobile digital wallet provider Link is now making it easier for users to collect their remittances. Speaking at a JIS think tank, company brand and sponsorship manager Kemoy Burke explains why they decided to incorporate this new feature.
Everything we do, we anchor around trying to make life better for everybody. So we have the moniker that life is better with Link, and remittance is just another notch in that belt.
Mr. Burke also sought to explain what will happen with the new feature.
What will happen now that we have the remittance feature is that all users, all they need to do is to download the Link app, have their ID, a single TRN number, and then they are able to collect remittances instantly within the Link app. All day, every day, 24/7. Simple as that. No lines, no fees, no need to take transportation and incur more costs to collect your remittances.
He also says with the new service, any money sent from overseas can be kept in personal wallets to pay merchants and bills.
If mommy or daddy or whatever family sends funds to you from overseas, whatever you collect, you keep it all within your wallet. And then, of course, you can use that funds at over 5,000 merchants that we have on our platform. We have over 200,000 users using the platform, so you can also send funds to them. And guess what? You can also pay over 100 bills with that remittance funds that you would have collected.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Monday, March 27, the US dollar sold for an average of $151.65. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $110.97. The pound sterling traded for $183.93, and the euro sold for an average of $165.39. In GSE trading, the GSE index advanced by 780 points. The junior market index advanced by 26 points. The combined market index advanced by 968 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 2,102 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 126 stocks, of which 60 advanced, 34 declined, and 32 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, Barita Investments Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were Carreras Limited, Apple Limited 5% preference shares, and Equity Line Mortgage Investment Corporation preference shares. The overall volume leaders were Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 75 million units, Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 2 million units, and the Sagicor Real Estate X Fund Limited with over 900,000 units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund was the only active security posting a volume of 55 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, First Caribbean International Bank was the sole security trading 100 shares. In regional business, Trinidad and Tobago's finance minister says the government does not have any plans to devalue the Trinidad and Tobago dollar nor increase the repo rate. More in this report.
Finance Minister Colm Imbert said there has been misinformation in the public domain about the IMF's concluding statement, and he thought it important to respond. The Finance Minister said 3 of the 20 points raised by the IMF were comments and advice. He stated that the government is not in an IMF program, and so the government does not have to agree with anything.
That for 7 years, this government has resisted any calls from any sector to devalue the dollar or to float the dollar, because we believe that is going to send hundreds of thousands of people into poverty. We believe it will cause hyperinflation, and we believe that it will do tremendous damage.
The Finance Minister also explained that there is no mandate to increase the repo rate or the repurchase rate, which is the interest rate used to influence the level of commercial banks' interest rate.
Unlike the Federal Reserve, which has a legal mandate to use interest rates to contain inflation, we have no such mandate in Trinidad and Tobago. Our central bank looks at all sorts of things, looks at economic growth, looks at credit to businesses, looks at the rate of unemployment.
He also said the government would not be removing restrictions regarding availability of foreign exchange.
The IMF says that they encourage the authorities to remove all restrictions on current international transactions. We're not doing that. That is why we came up with our Exim Bank facility, where we provide foreign exchange for importers of essential foods, flour, rice, cheese, all of the essentials that we import as a country.
Minister Imbert made it clear that 17 of the 20 points raised by the IMF about government's management of the economy were overwhelmingly positive. Karen Kozia-Phillip, TTT News.
In market data for oil, crude prices edged higher, extending sharp gains from the previous session on supply disruption risk and hopes that turmoil in banking is being contained. Brent crude futures gained 15 cents to $78.27 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude was up 14 cents at $72.95 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, Cubans went to the polls to elect new members of the National Assembly on Sunday. The elections come at a time of severe economic crisis. Teresa Bull reports.
Angela Rodriguez Feal has been participating in Cuban elections for decades. She says her family was among the poorest in the country and benefited from Fidel Castro's revolution. Now, she says, soaring prices are a major challenge for Cuba's government, and that's why its leadership needs more support than ever.
We need to work so we confront the difficult times, so we can produce more for the country. We have lots of educated people. After the pandemic, lots of people are struggling, and for a country like ours, with an embargo, it's worse.
Millions of Cubans headed to the polls on Sunday to elect the members of the National Assembly that will select the next president.
Cuba is a one-party system. The candidates for the National Assembly are selected by a commission loyal to the Communist Party. There's 472 candidates for 472 seats. There's no members of the opposition, and that's why critics say that Cubans are allowed to vote, but not to choose.
Disenchantment with the economic situation is everywhere to be seen. U.S. sanctions, power cuts, a 60% inflation rate this year, and shortages of almost everything have forced hundreds of thousands to leave the country. And that's why turnout is crucial for the government, to provide the new assembly with the legitimacy it needs to rule in times of trouble.
There are a lot of people that will not vote to punish the government, because it's a fact that a government in the middle of a crisis is a government that gets punished. But at the same time, the new National Assembly needs to get involved in the day-to-day problems people face and get into a debate forum.
But not everyone is convinced. Thousands of people took to the streets in July 2021 in the largest anti-government protests in years. They were demanding freedom. Hundreds were detained and remain in prison. Miriam Leiva has been an outspoken critic of Cuba's government. Her husband spent years in prison.
The Cuban reality doesn't need to be exaggerated because it's tragic. After years, it's my duty to say the truth. The situation is so difficult that we have to see how the government solves this and opens up. Because there is one reality. The control here is not in a civilian government, but in the hands of the military, and now more than ever.
The government is promising to improve the country's devastated economy. Millions in Cuba are waiting for those reforms that will provide the relief that many here so desperately need. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Havana, Cuba.
In Guyana, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with other international organizations, on Monday launched its One Health initiative. We have more in this report.
On Monday, the Ministry of Health, along with other international organizations, gathered at the Pegasus Hotel Georgetown to launch the inaugural meeting on One Health. The groundbreaking initiative is the first of its kind locally and is being described as a policy. The One Health approach is critical to addressing health threats in the animal-human environment interface and can be accomplished by fostering collaboration and coordinating across government frameworks of human, animal, plant, and environmental health. Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, in his address to the gathering said, traditionally, health is often viewed as separate entities.
This whole concept of One Health is how do we combine them? And maybe in the name itself, it's making it one.
The subject minister said the aim of One Health is to consolidate the areas of human, environment, and animal health. He acknowledged the challenges ahead regarding collaboration among agencies as it relates to the modality to achieve the desired outcomes.
And this partnership that we have between ourselves, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, and other agencies that are here, is a step in that direction of how we can pool our resources together, technical capability.
United Nations Resident Coordinator Yazim Urak lauded the ministry's efforts to coordinate the inputs and cooperation from organizations such as Pan American Health Organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, and the World Bank.
Just like the Sustainable Development Goals, to which the government of Guyana has committed itself along with other member states of the United Nations, the One Health approach is about intersectoral cooperation.
The inaugural meeting also aims at reintroducing and reinforcing the implementation of the One Health approach in Guyana as a strategy for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Renata Burnett reporting for the HGP Nightly News.
In Antigua and Barbuda, the director of Prime Minister Gaston Brown's Entrepreneurial Development Program, Garfield Joseph, is calling for more collaboration to ensure the country's socioeconomic progress. Ursel Charles Jr. reports.
Opposition in Parliament and politics in general for opposing's sake must not be the way forward. That's the view of Executive Director of the Entrepreneurial Development Fund, the EDF, Garfield Joseph. He says opposing views in Parliament should be down to national development. Although he's expressing confidence Antigua-Barbuda's economy will continue to thrive, he's however called on progressive collaboration.
That we need more collaboration, right? So I always believe that the some knowledge of all those persons in Parliament, the some knowledge, all the knowledge that you have, persons come with different background, experience, and you put that knowledge together, it is better than the some knowledge of one person, two persons, or three persons.
We asked Joseph, how does a country get to this ideal?
I think it requires a certain level of humility and a certain level of constructive dialogue, right? Humility is saying that I don't have all of the answers. Yes, we have the knowledge, we have the experience. Opposition members know humility on both sides, that I don't know everything, but yet you can contribute. Yes, the government has some experience, so I can learn. Right. So that's the level of humility we need.
He's calling on an all-of-society approach to ensure the country moves ahead.
Government has a certain responsibility to provide laws and policies, enabling environment to ensure businesses to thrive and survive. Civil society has a role to play in terms of keeping the government accountable, ensure that there's no corruption, ensure that we get value for money. That's the role of society. And business, they're there to make money. That's the main aim. But they also have a corporate social responsibility, not just to make money, but to give back to society.
He adds the end game should be to uplift the country. Joseph appeared as a guest on Monday's edition of Antigua Barbuda Today. For ABS News, I am Ursula Charles Jr.
And in news further afield, plans are afoot to cancel 32 flights a day to and from Heathrow Airport at the start of the Easter holidays. British Airways says the move is due to a planned 10-day strike by 1,400 security workers in the Unite Union who are taking action in a dispute over pay. The walkout is due to start this Friday and end on April 9. Heathrow says contingency plans will be put in place to ensure it can operate as normal. In sports, all systems are in place for a very successful staging of the Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships. That's the word from President of the Intersecondary Schools Sports Association, Issa, Keith Wellington. Boys and Girls Champs is set to begin today, March 28, at the National Stadium. This year, the event returns with full spectator viewing inside the just over 30,000 capacity venue for the first time since 2019. More than 200 athletes from Jamaica and abroad are set to compete. The championships, Jamaica's premier high school track and field event, is to end on Saturday. Kingston College are the defending boys champions, while Edwin Allen High are the girls' title holders. South Africa and the West Indies will clash in the third and deciding T20 International at the Wanderers in Johannesburg on Tuesday. Joel Rain looks ahead.
Winning the toss could be crucial, as the Wanderers after provided an excellent batting surface. However, as the game goes on, the spinners and pacers could become more useful. On this track, the average first innings score is 173. In most cases, chasing teams have prevailed. The teams will enter the affair with honours at stake. The Windies, led by Captain Rovman Powell, won a truncated opener by 3 wickets at the Super Sport Park in Centurion, where 24 hours later, South Africa pulled off a record run chase to make it 1-1. Several records tumbled as Johnson Charles cracked the fastest ever T20 international century by a West Indian to set a target of 259. And in response, Quinton de Kock slammed 43-ball 100 to help the Proteas home. The hosts will bid to build on having won 5 of their last 7 T20 internationals against the Windies, who will be seeking a race series victory on South African soil. Joel Rain, ABS Sports.
And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Pleasant viewing.